Hilchos Lulav Perek Zayin Halacha Yud Aleph. Also la Aguda Zu Gimun Shel Kesef. If he made to this the package that we tie around the lulav, he made a covering of silver v'shel zov. Let's go down to the Peirush. Gimun, it's a type of ring, which is made of silver or gold. Oy shekoch satin v'not lo yotza. Or he wrapped around it a cloth and he picked it up. He fulfilled his obligation because taking it with something else in between your hand and the item is called taking it. It has to be, however, obviously a show of honor and also look nicer. It's anything that's made to make it, beautify it, is not considered as separating between the mitzvah and your hand. If you put it into a vase or or in a pot, because that's not called taking the species, you're taking the pot or the vase. The Magen Mishnah cites the Mishnah. There was an incident with Anshe Yerushalayim, the people of Yerushalayim, that they would bind the lulaveim with gimuniyoi shel zohav. These are rings of gold. Rashi explains they were strands of gold that they were bent, that they kigimoin, like ka'agmoin, and in other words, they were like circles that tied together, and they could attach to each other around the lulav. The Gemara in Sukkah and Lulav, to those who put together the lulav, to leave underneath the eged enough place so the hand can clutch it, so that he will not touch the actual binding at the time that he takes it, because he's of the opinion, like the Rachomim, that you don't have to bind the lulav and esrog, the lulav and the other minim together, and we'll take it at the time of. If we'll grab it that way, it will separate the igud. Therefore, what binds it together will be a separation between him and the mitzvah. And Rava says whatever is done for beauty, it doesn't separate. Rava says you shouldn't take a lulav with a cloth, because it's not called that you took it. You only took the cloth. And Rava says even though it's wrapped in something else, it's called taking it. And Rava says you shouldn't go with a lulav and a hodas and a lulav in the same pouch that's tied, because maybe leaves will fall off and into the pouch, and that will separate. Well, it says if it's min b'mina, if it's part of if it's part of the lulav and part of the hadasim or aravas, it does not separate. The Ridif says the halacha is like Rava. The Rambam is of the opinion that Rava says that it doesn't separate is only when it's done for beauty. Both when it's tied together or it's not tied together. And you fulfill your obligation to begin with. It's not for beauty's sake, like in Sukkah. The Rambam says that if you took it with a kli, you do not fulfill your obligation. So the question that he says, L'kicha yedava acha shmo l'kicha. How can you say that with taking it in a vessel is not fulfilling your obligation, when Rava says if you take it with something in between, it is considered taking it? And the answer, if it's done in a way of honoring the lekicha, it's different. Like the Rambam mentions here. Halacha Mishnah questions, why didn't Rava say that anything that is for beauty is not separation? Why does he have to say there's no such thing as a separation? And he goes on to explain that a separation is one law, and taking it through something else is another law. He cites the Ran that if you take it via a napkin, let's say you're holding a napkin, it's called taking it, because for beauty's sake, is only pushes away the idea that there's no separation like there are. And it doesn't push away the psul that if you're taking it through something else. Meaning that if you take it with a vase, that's a separation min Torah, so it's not going to help you in the beauty. However, having a napkin that's not beautiful to take it with would not be midrabanan. It's a separation, and if it's not, it doesn't beautify the lulav, you would not fulfill your obligation. It brings proof that if you do it through something else, it's called taking it from an azov. Azov that you dip it in mechatos, in water which is fresh, which has in it the ashes of the red heifer, in order to spray it on somebody who became Tomei Mace. He came in contact with a dead person, and regarding, even though you're not touching the earth, you're touching the azov, and the azov is touching the water, and on the water there's earth. Is called taking it. If it wouldn't be called taking it, it wouldn't accomplish anything. So you see, it's called taking it. But by lulav, you need to have more than that. You need to have beautification, and even there is no obligation. If there's a separation, like a vase, it's lacking in taking. And what the Gemara says by lulav, that if you take it with something else, it's called taking it. That's when it's to glorify the lulav. But if it's not for beauty, it becomes posel because it's a separation, and not because of taking of something else, but rather because you're taking with something else, but because it's a chatzitza. So there's two separate ideas. Chatzitza means something separating, and if it's a noi, it's not called separating. Via something else, like a vase, which is carrying it, that's a different aspect. However, according to the other commentaries, taking it by something else is called a lekicha, that if it was for its beauty, it would not be considered a separation. And where the Gemara says that you have to take it in an honorable fashion, that means that there's no shame in the way you're doing it. It doesn't mean that you don't want to get in contact with the lulav. But according to the Rambam, it's more understandable. Therefore, the Maggid Mishnah says that he is the main concept, that if it's for beauty's sake, there's no chatzitza. And then there's a separate aspect of not taking it via something else. The Shulchan Aruch in 651 says the halacha is, if you made a beis yad, if you made something to hold the lulav and you put the lulav in it, it's all right, because doing it by something else, it's called taking it, but it has to be in an honorable way. If it's not an honorable way, that he put the lulav in a vessel and he took it, then it's not yotzei. The Shabura adds, even if it's made of silver, it's not called honoring, because he's holding the vessel and not the item itself. Many of the later commentaries say that if it's actual vessel, it doesn't matter whether he's holding it from the side or he's holding it from underneath or he's holding it by the holder, you would not fulfill your obligation. The Shulchan Aruch in 651 Paskins, if you made a beis yad and you put the lulav and you took it, it's okay, because even if you take it with something else, it's called taking it, but it has to be in an honorable way. If it's not in an honorable way, then he put the lulav in a vessel and he took it, he didn't fulfill his obligation. The Mishnah Berurah adds that even if it's a silver vessel, it's not covered, because he's holding the vessel and not holding the item. And many achronim that with a vessel, one should be careful if he takes it by its side, whether he leaves even if he puts his hand underneath it, or he holds it by the handle. The Mechaber continues, and if he put around it a linen napkin and he took it, or he put something around his hand and he took it, those say you don't fulfill your obligation. The Mishnah Berurah adds that somebody who wears gloves, you don't fulfill your obligation according to this. What the Mechaber says, Why doesn't he mention that's halacha? Because the Ran says that gloves are bottled to the hand, but if you put a linen, a cloth on the lulav, according to the Ran, you didn't fulfill your obligation because that's not considered taking it. But if you took it with a glove, you should take it again without a brocha, if once he has done so, because he already may have fulfilled his obligation. There are more sites. People are more stringent to take off anything, even tefillin, and tabas from their hands. Those who put on tefillin in Chol HaMoed, but really there's no reason to do so. The Mishnah Berurah adds, Menachronim write that even within, one should be careful. There shouldn't be a separation, even if the whole hand is not covered. Therefore, if he took it before he took off the rings from his hand, he should take it again without a brocha in case he didn't fulfill his obligation. The Peirush HaMeir points out that the Rambam doesn't mention regarding that if he didn't take it, he should stop his meal. The Rif did bring it, and the Rosh questions why the Rambam left it out, and he adds that this din is only applicable in the first day when one is obligated in Torah to take it. However, in the other days, Mr. Rabbonim, if there's hours in the day to take it, you don't have to separate. If there's no hours, you have to separate with eating. The Sha'ar Melech cites from Sukkah that a question from the Mishnah, which says he should take it on his table, that he should stop in the middle of his meal. That if you began, there's another Mishnah in Shabbos that says if you began, you don't have to stop. The Sha'ar Melech explains that what was bothering the Riv was the question of Toisus. So the Gemara answers that by Lulav they required you to stop eating because you can do it a whole day and you may forget to do it. However, when it comes to Tfilas Mincha, you won't forget. Toisus answers that prayer needs time, and it's people will be lazier about davening than about taking the lulav. And once you take it, you're finished. Therefore, for lulav, he won't transgress. Now, we find in Masechta Shabbos this answer. The Sha'ar Melech learns that the Rebbe is of the opinion, like the second answer of Toisus, that Ma'ariv, which really the time is entire night, he may push it off and forget to do it. Therefore, he doesn't need the answer of Safo that there's time left or there isn't time, and he doesn't need the entire discussion that they go into to make a differentiation between the first day, which is the Raisa, to the other days. The Machon Nesher explains the Rambam's opinion that by Kriya Shema, it says if he was eating or in the bathhouse or taking a haircut, or he was working leather, or he was judging a din Torah, he completes it and then he reads Kriya Shema. But if he was afraid maybe the time will pass by, then if he stopped, he is praiseworthy. The Rebbe is of the opinion that he has to stop. What do you mean he's praiseworthy? Even though there's time to read it, because it's Min HaTorah. If there's no time, even the Tefillah, the Rabbanon, one has to stop doing whatever one's doing to pray Mincha or Ma'ariv. Because the Mishnah answers that the Rebbe is of the opinion of the Gemara. It depends on whether it's the Raisa or the Rabbanon. And even in other days, there's a difference if there's time to stop or not. The Rambam is of the opinion that since at the conclusion of the Gemara, they made a difference between whether there's time or not, that goes in to explain that even when it's the Raisa, if there's time, one need not stop the meal to take the lulav. The Mishnah that says that if he came from the trip, he can take has to stop in the middle of his meal is talking about whether even if it's the second day Yom Tov, or the first day Yom Tov, that he became, and how could he come on Yom Tov when he made an Erev, or because there were buildings that connected these small buildings that made it that one could travel from one town to another. But the Lechem Mishnah is of the opinion that even the Rambam agrees, like Rambam, that there's a difference between whether the obligation of the day of taking the lulav is the first day, or the other days which are only rabbinical. And when it comes to the Raisa, even at this time, he has to stop. As we had the question of Tosfos, by Kiddush Hayoim, which is the Raisa, now Halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, that he doesn't have to stop the meal. Therefore, he explains Rava Hodei Raisa that to begin with, one should stop the meal to take the lulav, even though you don't have to, according to Rabbi Yossi. And therefore, the Rambam says that if he stops and he said Kriya Shema, he's praiseworthy. And if it would be Rabbanon, if there's time, he doesn't have to stop to begin with. The Kapos Timorim doesn't like this answer. He goes back to the question of the Raiva. Therefore, the Machon Nesher answers that the Rambam is of the opinion, like the Rif, at the conclusion of the discussion in Shabbos, that it is not a disagreement between the Raisa and the Rabbanon, and whether there's hours or whether there isn't hours, but rather if its time is set, and there's no like if people are davening at a certain hour, and therefore he won't forget, and he won't forget to keep the mitzvah, then he doesn't have to stop. But if there's nothing to stop him, he has to stop. Therefore, Kriya Shema, which has a set time, like Tfilas Mincha, he does not need to stop. What it says in the Mishnah, you stop for Kriya Shema, that's when he's learning Torah. According to the Rambam, that would be Pshat in Kriya Shema. When he says that if he's afraid that the time will pass by, he stops, he's praiseworthy, you learn from this discussion that since if there's a set time, for sure he will not forget to do it, and he will remember. Therefore, if he remembers and he's afraid that the time will go by, he can stop so that he won't come to transgress and not do the mitzvah. And since the Mishnah comes to tell us that one has to stop if it's a set time, and we learned this in Hilchos Kriya Shema, therefore in Hilchos Lulav he left it out, because he already, whenever the Rambam said it in the previous Halacha, then he does not repeat it. Machon Nesher in 652 says that the Halacha is if he forgot and he ate and he remembers while he's eating in the first day, which is the Raisa, which is Minat Torah, he stops even if there's time to take it after he eat. But after the first day, if there's time, he doesn't have to stop. Otherwise, he should. That's according to the first answer of the Gemara. The Machon Nesher says that this is according to the Rosh and the Tur. But the Riv brought the Mishnah that he should stop, and he didn't make a differentiation between the first day and the other days, and whether there's time or not, like the Rambam. The Beis Yosef is of the opinion to establish the Halacha L'Maisa that if the Rambam and the Riv disagree on the Rosh, the Halacha is according to the majority, the Rambam and the Riv. Therefore, the Bikur Yaakov says, according to the Rambam and the Riv, one should be more stringent to stop the meal, even on the second day, even if there's time left, and not the way the Shulchan Aruch says that after the second day one may continue the meal if there's time left.